You're listening to a Heroes Welcome episode 20. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Wes. I'm here with Angie. We're going to talk about Overwatch.
Yes, Season 2 is finally here. I know we've been waiting for a long time. Can't wait to get in. I've already done a couple of my placements. Have you done any of your placements yet?
No, I have not. Blizzard was getting DDoS. They had a Legion expansion release this week, and
yeah, that fell. It kind of screws everything, doesn't it? Yeah, so some of that kind of leaked into Overwatch. I didn't have any real problems with doing any of mine. I know some people were complaining about, having the DDoS affect their server and having them disconnect and such, but...
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to play on the safe side. Season 1, I won every game besides one, and you could guess what happened. DC. And I just didn't want to repeat, I was traumatized.
Yeah, I've been pretty lucky so far. Like I said, I've done a couple of mine. I haven't had any DCs, but, I'm usually pretty lucky with that. I don't have too many DCs, but, yeah, I've had a lot of fun so far. I mean, we're going to be talking a lot about Season 2 and a lot of changes. If you haven't been paying close attention, we're going to get into those, but...
So it came a little bit sooner than we were expecting?
Yeah, so, I mean, we were expecting it on the 6th, and even though they came out and kind of said that, things were already set in stone and they were going to come out on time on the 6th, here we are. It is, already out. It came out September 1st, super early. So.
Yeah, but I don't think anyone's upset about it, right? You get to start a little bit earlier?
Oh, definitely not. I've been waiting and waiting. Like I said before, I mean, competitive is where it's at for me, so I don't play too much quick match now that there's a competitive.
Right, I haven't seen the new map yet. Have you seen the new map?
Oh, yes. I played plenty. I did play some, of the PTR and such before competitive came out, Season 2, and I've actually got to play it in competitive as well in one of my placement matches, which was really cool. It's actually the one that I lost, though, unfortunately, but it's a new map. A lot of people confused. I don't know what's going on, but, yeah.
You need more Bastions on your team.
Oh, no. That's one thing I definitely don't need is more Bastions.
I just saw the professionals use it a minute ago on the tournament.
Right? The Golden Bastion. That's what I need. I need to find the Golden Bastion out there, like the Golden Ticket. He's going to ride me right to the top, but...
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't need any more Bastions. But I had fun. Like I said, it was the one that I lost. But like I mentioned before in previous episodes, if you haven't seen it, it is a really, weird map compared to some of the others. It's very kind of closed off. A lot of different directions and routes you could take. People can get lost real easy. So
yeah, I mean, I like it looks beautiful. It's cool. A little bit different. It just looks like, I don't know if it's like the color scheme, like the whole art palette or something. Like something about it's quite a bit different.
Yeah, the whole art palette is completely different. It looks very different. Like I said, it looks amazing. I really enjoy the map. It's a really fun map, especially to play with like Genji and Hanzo. There's a lot of, verticality to the map, a lot of, places to climb, places to kind of get, the upper hand on your opponent and kind of catch them off guard and such. Lots of places for Reaper to kind of drop out, and get the jump on you and such. But it's a really nice map.
But yeah, the servers seem to be stable now. I don't hear too much commotion about DCs. Maybe it's dying down a little bit.
Yeah, I haven't heard of any problems lately. So hopefully, now that things have died out, a lot of people have kind of already done much of their leveling and stuff like that. And, WoW, I think it's kind of died down. So.
All right, cool. So, yeah, we have a lot to talk about today. We're going to be covering McCree in our strategy segment, which is surprising we haven't talked about him yet.
I know we talked about it, and, I was real surprised that we hadn't done McCree in the past. I mean, there's kind of a lot of stuff around McCree, a lot of changes. So if you haven't paid close attention, we're going to jump into a lot of that. McCree's, a very interesting character. He's got a lot of stuff going on for him, for sure.
Yeah, we'll be talking about a little bit about competitive and quite a bit of news. Obviously, there's a brand new patch. We've been following it in the PTR. Obviously, most of the changes, are in the live, and not much difference from what we've been chatting about in the past.
Yeah, so we'll briefly go over some of the big bullet points on those and such. We're not going to get too much into it because, like I said, we've done a lot of that in the previous episodes. But, yeah, there is a lot of changes. If you haven't been paying attention, check out one of our previous episodes. The last one, 19 or 18. We talk a lot about the changes and to the PTR as well as competitive. So,
all right, so let's start with the news. Obviously, the patch 1.3 is out. It's what was in PTR. We've been following the changes a little bit. So let's kind of brush over, retrospect. How is Season 2 to you? How does it feel? Do you think they went in the right direction? Quite a bit of changes?
I mentioned it in the past, actually, in one of the previous episodes quite a while ago, that I really liked the beta version of, competitive. And this is definitely a kind of, a switch towards that direction. I think they went in a really good direction. I like the changes thus far, and I'm really happy with them.
Yeah, I mean... the people have been asking for the whole bronze, silver, gold system for a while, and people relate to that. They know, what that means. If they're a gold player, rather than an abstract number between 1 and 100, and 60 being somewhat pretty good. 60 out of 100 doesn't sound good, so people know where they stand now. And
and I mean it's really multifaceted. The scales for the tiers. But honestly, I mean, Kaplan talked about it in length, and you can check that out as well. But he talked about, just the feeling of having the tiers. First of all, I mean, me being a competitive player, obviously I want to know where I stand at any given point. But the tiers really give you an opportunity to not focus so much on that single number, that exact scale number that you're at. Before it was 1 through 100. So myself, I would lose one single rank, go down, and I would just feel terrible. Whereas now the tiers are much better. You don't have dropping out of tiers. So
yeah, I think it's gonna overall. I mean, it feels better, it looks better. You have 1 to 5,000. Just recap real quick. And yeah, so you're not going up, little increments at a time. You're going up multiple ranks or down multiple ranks.
Right. So only whole numbers. So that's better. Of course, it makes it easier to know exactly how that match affected your ranking. If you went up multiple levels or not, instead of getting that weird, half a rank or whatever, not knowing exactly how much that gave you. And as well as sudden death completely going away. That's another big thing.
I don't think anyone's going to be missing that.
Yeah, we'll see how that works out. I didn't like the way sudden death was for sure, but I'm not crazy about draws either. I know they give you, some competitive points, make it feel like, it was worthwhile at least and such, but I just don't like things that are incomplete. It just seems weird to me that things can just end in a draw. Don't like that.
I still think it's going to be relatively rare. Very, very rare. I mean, maybe the lower ranks more common?
It's going to be more common at the lower ranks, but it still should be pretty rare, so that's obviously much better than sudden death was, so hopefully that'll be better. And I think overall it will still be better, but I think there's, definitely a different route that they could have took, and, I would have liked to see them try with that. But, for now, I'm fine with draws.
Yeah, I mean, as long as we're progressing in the right direction, that's the way I look at it, right? So this is just season 2, very beginning. Obviously, they could make changes. They're probably not going to make dramatic changes in the middle of a season, how it works and everything.
No, but it will give them a lot of info and statistics for them to go back and go, hey, okay, season 3, we're going to change this or change that. So, yeah, I mean, hopefully, like I said, we're moving in the right direction. I like where we're going, and, hopefully things are uphill from here.
Yeah, as far as format goes, the coin flip really was a 50-50 chance for a lot of games, and with the current system, I don't see that happening. Yeah, maybe a draw here and there, but it's extremely rare. But I mean, I had tons of coin flips, and it literally just came down to who was lucky, and that's not going to happen anymore.
Yeah, especially at the higher ratings when you have people who are competent teams who know how to attack. The attackers are just winning every single time.
Yeah, when you play King's Row, both teams, if they're competent, are going to complete the map in the time. I mean, the person who gets there way faster should win, and that's pretty much what's happening right now.
Right. So, I mean, it should be a lot better for sure in that way. But, yeah, hopefully, like I said, things look like they're going in the right direction, definitely. So, I'm definitely looking forward to...
So, format and the skill tiers and all that are good. So, what about the balance? So, quite a bit of balance changes.
Yeah. So, if you haven't played, in the PTR at all, there is quite a bit of balance changes, and we'll brush over a little bit of that. But I feel like it's in a really good place right now. I feel like everybody's kind of really on an even kill. Obviously, composition matters a lot, but I feel like you can kind of pick up any character and be very viable right now.
Right. I think there may be a couple exceptions, but I think it's better. Because what I'm looking at, like I said, mainly is progression, right? So overall, the format looks much better. The tiers, the skill tiers, better. I do believe the character balance, in general, is in the right direction as well. I mean, Lucio got brought back a little bit. We've been talking about it a lot. Hanzo got some buffs.
Yeah, and the thing with Lucio is very minimal. He got brought back only in the sense that he felt like a 100% always picked because of the speed boost. So his playability and his effectiveness didn't really get changed at all. It just that speed boost was so strong, you always felt like you needed it. But you're still seeing a lot of Lucios. I've watched plenty of tournaments with Lucio in it left and right.
Yeah, especially King of the Hills. King of the Hills, I like him on, but I don't know. It just, I'm a Zenyatta guy.
Even Mercy.
Right
I mean, Mercy had some buffs and such, but she's still kind of in that position where, like, a lot of people, she's definitely, like, the strongest pound-for-pound healer in that way, but she's still very squishy. She gets taken out very early a lot, and you really have to protect your Mercy. So she's still in that kind of position.
Yeah, I don't see her getting out of that position anytime soon unless they give her like a brand new E ability or something, which may happen. But I mean, the impact that Zenyatta has, I think, is much more greater than like a Mercy, right? So you count Discord and his offensive capabilities, and his ult is really, really good. I think people are understanding how powerful Zenyatta ult it actually is.
Yeah, I mean, Zenyatta definitely got bumped up into the meta for sure, and we're seeing a lot of him. But again, Mercy's healing is still going to be much better, but his effectiveness overall, like you said, with his ability to do damage has really bumped him into the position of being played a lot more. But you're still seeing a lot of people play Mercy. Like I said, you really have to protect her, and I don't see that going away. I mean, that's kind of just a function of the way she works. You get a lot of benefit from her healing output being really strong, but then again, she can really, get taken out very early. But then again, you have the res as well.
But yeah, to some extent, I am surprised that Mercy is still, pretty dominant. I mean, Zenyatta is right now like a must, but a lot of times you have more than one support, and it's just if a Genji goes after your Mercy, that Mercy is dead. I mean, there's nothing to do. I mean, maybe you could have a McCree babysitting and maybe get that pick, but I mean, he really probably better be suited somewhere else, doing something else, and it's just like there's no stopping that. How are you going to stop that Genji from just maybe have a Pharah on your team and she could get open air a little bit more? But it's just scenarios like that are really what's going to be holding her back.
Right. I mean, basically, unless you have somebody else holding on to an ult or such that can protect your Mercy, she's going to get killed by that Genji if it's competent for sure. But I think they like that trade-off because of the fact that her resurrection is so strong. So a lot of teams still vying to go with her because that resurrection is still so strong. You'll see so many teams where matches can just flip-flop from one res.
So the other healers, we've seen buffs to Ana. She's still not super popular. I still do believe that there's potential there. I think some players in the competitive scene are starting to figure out a little bit better.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we'll talk a little bit of competitive play. I watched a really good one of the weekly tournaments, and I seen some really good Ana play. So she is very kind of a trade-off. You really have to be very good with her on both sides of her coin. You have to be very good at getting damage out on her and healing to make her as worthwhile as some of the others. But her ult can be very strong, and if you really know how to play her, you can definitely get some.
Yeah, and a lot of it's just like combinations, right? Like I think she's really good with Winston. Winston's not super dominant. I mean, he's still all right, but he's not super dominant in Symmetra. I mean, she's about in the same place.
It's all about the comp because, again, with that tournament, you've seen a really good, Winston, Ana, and a very good Zarya-Winston combo. So, I mean, Winston's still very strong if you put him in the right situation. It's all about the compositions right now. So
yeah,
we're seeing a lot of different compositions, which is awesome. I mean, I love just seeing all the different teams stack up.
So as far as the tank side of the coin for the changes in Season 2, I mean, Zarya's pretty much looking like an auto instant pick.
Yeah, I mean, she's definitely one of the stronger tanks as far as the combo. She always has an amazing combo. I mean, Zarya's ult can combo with pretty much anything, and it's going to wipe most of the team. It's going to give you the team fight for sure. Again, we had some changes to D.Va, and we'll talk about that as well. I mean, she had a little bit of a changes previously that kind of brought her up in where she's at now, but then there's been a little bit of a reduction to the amount of time that her matrix respawns as well, so kind of helping that out a little bit.
Yeah, so the tank side, not as much changes probably as the support, but I mean, we don't see too much D.Va right now.
Yeah, I mean, you got to remember when you're changing, support classes and also the offensive and defensive characters, that's going to make a huge impression on the tanks because remember we were in a very tank-heavy meta previously with the nerfs to McCree and such. So whenever the offensive side of the ball gets buffed, then the tank's going to get nerfed a little bit. So,
I mean, I think the balance is pretty good. I still see people complaining about like Roadhog needs super buffs and all this kind of thing. I don't know. Sometimes you just don't know if they're serious.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like I said, other than some small things here or there, I definitely think that things are really even across the board. The only thing to mention, I think, with Roadhog you mentioned is that his hook, I almost feel like it's a little weirder now with the changes that they made to where that
other people are saying that as well.
That the line of sight is checking when it's retracting instead of when it's going out. And before, at least, as Roadhog, you were guaranteed that if you hook somebody, it's coming to you pretty much. Now you're seeing people going off in weird directions, and I watched a lot of tournament play with him, and I felt bad for the tank because he kept pulling people in, and they were going off in weird directions. He was never getting kills off of his hooks, so it's very different.
Yeah, and maybe it has something to do with the servers.
It could.
I know
be,
in the
but
Asian servers they're having difficulty with the ping refresh rate. Something I don't know.
It could be, but I played a little bit of Roadhog. It was very weird. I mean, I'm used to just spamming my left click and auto getting that kill, and it's very weird.
Yeah, it's a little bit different now.
Yeah, so a little bit of change there, but again, not so much to Roadhog and the tanks, but yeah. So, I mean, we did have some changes. I think one of the biggest changes that we haven't talked about yet is Hanzo. Hanzo got really, really changed. His, got some pretty big buffs.
The Hanzo mains all came out of the closet, and lots of Hanzos.
Definitely lots of Hanzos. If you played the PTRs, it was like Hanzo City left and right. I even got in and played a little bit of Hanzo.
But you have to keep in mind the arrows, hitboxes were reduced. They're flying faster now, but you're not going to get those random lucky headshots just spamming, long corridors.
Yeah, so really good Hanzos. You're going to see a lot more of them. People who are, very familiar with Hanzo and such, they're going to be able to pick them up and get a lot more effectiveness out of them. And it just feels a lot better across the board having that movement speed increase when you have your arrows drawn. You don't feel as vulnerable and such. But yeah, they did reduce arrow size, and so that's going to make a different change for a lot of other people as well.
Yeah, my problem with Hanzo right now is it's kind of the same thing with the Widowmaker in the current state. There's almost always a better option. I mean, certain circumstances, maybe Hanzo's good, but you're taking up a slot in your team, and there's almost always a better option, whether it be a Reaper for the tanks, a McCree, which we'll cover a lot later, just raw damage output from good range, hit scan. So, I don't know. It's like, I'm trying to think what particular example would Hanzo be extremely useful, and I could think of a couple, but he has some decent combo wombo percentage, like potential. But
yeah, and you know what? If you haven't played the new level yet, the new map, he's definitely going to be very useful on Eichenwald. There's a lot of, like I said, verticality in a lot of different places, little roads and side alleys and such, and he can use those scatter arrows, get a lot of effectives out of that. And there's kind of one major general direction towards, the room in which you're moving towards, and so he's going to be able to get some ult off there as well. So I can expect to see some on Eichenwald for sure. But, I mean, hopefully we'll just see more across the board with these changes.
Yeah, I like diversity in the different maps. Will certainly bring out characters more than maybe you don't see so much in other maps. Yeah,
I mean, I definitely agree. He's taking up a spot, and it kind of feels very bad to have him in place of, say a lot of others like McCree and such. But, yeah, hopefully we'll see more. Like I said, I feel like we're going to see more diversity. I've already been starting to see more people running the, only one tank, one healer composition instead of multiple tanks, multiple healers. So, hopefully we'll see some more.
Is that the Asia meta?
That's pretty much the Asian meta. It has just one tank, one support, and all, offense and defense characters otherwise.
I think they're going to get steamrolled if they try to pull that in the EU.
Yeah, I mean, in this game, tanks are so viable, even as damage dealers and such, that it feels really tempting to just want to run tanks rather than offensive characters.
I mean, I don't know. It's just a trend I've noticed with other games. The past years is a lot of the Asian metas. They have this interesting weird thing, and they don't really follow. They have their own enclosed meta, but whenever they get in like a global encounter, right? It's usually doesn't pan out very well for them.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely have a different way of thinking for sure, and I think a lot of it kind of hinges on the fact that everybody plays solid across the board, and so they're kind of thinking maybe they can get away with only one tank, one support, but in this game it's very different. You can't rely on one support and one tank, I think, in a lot of situations.
Yeah, I mean, maybe one tank in certain circumstances, but like single support is it's just how you engaging. Like without, you need a Zen ult, every engagement. You need a Lucio ult on that engagement, and you're gonna need a lot of engagements. One healer's not gonna be able to keep up with that.
Yeah, and
you're
again,
gonna
like
be losing
said,
way more than 50%.
Yeah, and again, like you said, I mean, especially if you're running with like a Mercy and such, which is again a very Asian meta. They run a lot of Mercy over there as well. You're going to see, people targeting the Mercy, and once your Mercy's dead, your push is over.
Yeah, so Talk about the Hanzo changes. Talk about his brother Genji. Obviously, we talked about he can't no longer double jump. Well, it doesn't get reset when you wall climb, so you can't like double jump, wall climb, double jump.
Yeah, so again, it's not a crazy big deal. I mean, it does take his maneuverability down quite a bit, and if you're not used to it, you're gonna have to get used to it. It's very different. I know I ran into it right away, and I'm just like, what's going on here? Like, it's not working like it's supposed to. But yeah, it's very different. But trust me, if you see good Genjis play, still amazing plays.
Yeah, he got some other nerfs as well, with the ult being reduced and also the melee changes and animation kind of stuff.
So he definitely feels a lot different with the melee changes. And then also I know I ran into the same problem with the ult being reduced 2 seconds from 8 seconds to 6. You pull out the blade and it's like it seems like there's no time to get anything done with the Dragon Blade, but it's just a little bit of a change you have to get used to. But
I don't think it hurt him too bad. I still see him being picked, and maybe he need to be tuned down a little bit.
Oh yeah, I mean he's definitely still viable. He's definitely a really great pick still, especially if you need to take out a lot of squishy characters and such, and get in the back line, get those mercies. But yeah, you have to keep in mind in the back of your head that change to the ult, because I can't tell you how many times I pulled out the ult and I was like, I thought I had a lot more time, and then I get myself into trouble. I'm in the back line when it ends, and
yeah. You just got to think about it a little more often. Other damage, we'll be talking about McCree a lot in the very end, but his Deadeye to get changed. You can't just kind of use half of your ult for a zoning tool anymore.
Yeah, so you're seeing a lot of players do that, especially high-tier players, just using it as zoning tool, canceling it, getting that 50% back, and that doesn't work anymore. So now it drains over about a quarter of a second, and that's gone. So basically, once you pop it, you're going to be using it now. If you're not going to just cancel it.
Yeah, and it's amazing to me to see like these top-tier players sometimes in these very competitive games get such value out of Deadeye. Like, some players could get such value out of Deadeye, and it's pretty amazing. It's one of the harder ults to pull off correctly.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the harder ults. I know I have, a lot of trouble with it. I always, try and use it in like this, unique way and try and catch people off guard, and it's just like, it's a big red flag when it goes up and you hear the Deadeye and everything, and it's like, yeah, you just... Some people can get really good value out of it, but it's definitely one of the difficult ones.
Yeah, and let's talk about Mei, right? So she got a little bit of change with Ultimate. It's a little bit larger radius, and her little projectile could penetrate like a Winston shield, for example, and stuff. But they're probably going to need to do more than that to bring Mei really
Yeah, see, this is the thing with Mei, is she's kind of in a really weird situation. She is... On some things, she's very strong. 1v1, she's super strong. She has a lot of utility that she can bring to the table. But she's just in this weird position, kind of like Hanzo, like you said, where she's taking up a position, and another hero can just do so much better. McCree can give you so much more value than a Mei can. You're going to see her in some very weird situations, on defense. You're going to see her closing off areas, I think, a lot more now. But, yeah, I think they're going to definitely need to do some more to bring her into the meta.
But I want to point out that I think it's perfectly fine that there be characters in the game that aren't always viable at the highest, tier competition. Obviously we see like Torbjorn, Bastion. I saw some Bastion today, right, at the Gosu Weekly, and they won that game. It was pretty exciting. But it's okay to have heroes that are not, tier 1, right?
Oh, definitely. And this is the thing, we get caught up in this because we watch all these high rated players, and they're going to obviously be using the best that they possibly can. They're putting together solid teams. They're competent teams. So then, combinations matter a lot more because they're speaking constantly. They're communicating. And that doesn't happen normally. You don't have these competent teams getting together on just regular ladder and competitive. So it's totally different. So you're going to see, obviously, a lot less Mei in, competitive, in, high-rated play than you do in just regular competitive, play. But... yeah, it's definitely okay that there are others out there, outliers, that don't get played as much.
Right, and a couple other characters that got changed. 76, we talk a little bit about his bullet spread. It's working a little bit differently now. I guess, it doesn't spread as much, as fast, and it kind of resets the spread.
Right, so it's going to spread quicker. It's going to start spreading a lot earlier in shooting, but it's going to be a lot less at a time, and then it will recover much quicker. So if you're playing Soldier, basically you're definitely just bursting constantly now, and you're never just kind of holding it open. So
yeah, at a certain range, obviously, if they're close enough, you can see the spread.
Yeah, if you're just shooting at a Reinhardt shield or such, then it doesn't matter. But yeah,
and we have Zenyatta. We talked a little bit about him, but his Orva Discord did get decreased from 50 to 30, which I predicted exactly, but I also predicted that it's not going to make him any less viable, really.
Oh, no. I think it kind of leveled things out across the board for him. He's still very much the same kind of effectiveness he was before this change. But what it really did is it changed the effectiveness of Order of Discord by itself, so it didn't make it quite as strong when you have multiple people attacking the same target. So, I mean, before, with the 50% amplification on damage for the Orb, people were just deleting people. Just deleting them.
I mean, I'm surprised it just took so long, but when you have Mercy and Lucio being so good for so long, I guess he was always the third one in line. But yeah, now it looks like he's number one as far as the healers are concerned.
Yeah, I mean, it's just really good Zenyatas that just get so much done, both on, defensive and offensive side of things, that he really is very effective in most situations.
And we mentioned in the past, but Watchpoint Gibraltar also got the first checkpoint removed, so you're not going to see that.
Yeah, so they specifically just came out and mentioned that, there's no need for it anymore now that, we don't have the sudden death. They don't need that first point, so they're just getting rid of it.
So, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much everything that comes to mind. I mean, overall, everything looks good. Really like it all in a nutshell. Season 2, pretty excited. Get our full, first full-length season, right? Full, almost 3 months.
Yeah, I mean, definitely looking forward to season 2. Like I said, balance, it seems a lot better across the board. I'm just, like I said, I'm super, super looking forward to it.
Super. All right, let's talk about the super competitive.
All right, jumping into competitive. So we have some new stuff going on. We have, of course, we talked about it previously, Tempo Storm getting into Overwatch finally. They had already announced that they were going to pick up an Australian team, which is kind of interesting. But they also mentioned that they were going to be picking up a second team, and we assumed, obviously, that second team would be NA. And, of course, we were right. NA is the second team.
Right, so last week we did find out that Tempo Storm picked up a roster in Australia, and they actually have already swapped 3 of those guys out for 3 new Australian guys. So pretty quick, maybe a little bit of drama. I mean, we don't really get into that kind of stuff. A lot of it's just kind of hearsay. But anyways, hopefully the best for them. But we did know when they got the Australian team that they were going to be getting another roster, and they have picked one.
Yeah, so they kind of picked up a few of the previous members from Northern Gaming, specifically Northern Gaming Red. I know we talked about in the past there was a Northern Gaming Red and Blue kind of dropped out of it. So they kind of took up a few of the members of Northern Gaming Red, which they were doing really good for quite a while. So definitely looking forward to seeing how they fit into the new Tempo Storm mold.
And it's nothing better than having, Ray Noodle being your boss. He's a cool guy.
Right,
Smart guy.
There's a reason why they do good in pretty much every game that they get into. So I'm expecting big things from them, of course. If you've watched any of the tournaments recently, they've already been doing pretty well. So good luck to them, and hopefully we'll see a lot of them.
All right, so let's also talk about the GosuGamers Weeklies. They've returned. Sometimes they go on a little hiatus. Usually when big tournaments come by and a lot of the players are busy and stuff. But it's really exciting to have these weeklies, to know that you can watch them, and I think a lot of up-and-coming teams have a good place to come and show themselves because, like some of the really big teams are busy. Maybe they're flying to events or, they don't really have to participate in these small things, but it's really healthy, I think, for the competitive scene to have tournaments where up-and-coming teams could actually showcase their ability.
Yeah, and we talked about it in the past. We love the weeklies. I mean, it's just awesome to have something constantly every weekend that you can watch. If you're interested in Overwatch at all, I mean, they're super fun to just sit there and watch, high-rated players and see how they do. And then it's also fun just to have these, amateur teams coming up and getting in there just showing what they can do. So definitely glad to hear that the weeklies have returned. They were on quite a bit of a little hiatus there, but definitely looking forward to that.
Right, and the EU weeklies, they go up on Saturdays, and the North America weeklies are on Sunday.
Right, so the same as it was before. EU is on Saturday, NA is a little bit later on Sunday. So definitely check that out if you're interested in just learning anything or checking out the high-rated teams play and see how they play. Definitely GosuGamer Weeklies.
Right, and let's talk about the Overwatch Cup rosters.
Right, so we talked about it previously. They finally had closed the voting, so the voting was done. Well, now we finally have the rosters revealed. We'll kind of go through those. Like I said, we're not going to get into every team and every roster, but obviously Team USA, Siegel, captain of Team USA with an astounding 57% of the voting across the board, which, is kind of cool because they got to pick 2 of their players to be on the team as well.
Yeah, so to point out, so the people who got the most amount of votes per region, they actually got to fill 2 positions in their team.
Right. So the team captain gets to pick 2 of the players, and then the other players are obviously voted in as well.
Yeah, so a lot of Seagull fans. He gets really good Twitch ratings. A lot of fan base there. A lot of Seagulls flying around. So yeah, he won it. He picked Gods and Mezer.
Yeah, 2 really good players. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing some Gods. He's done an amazing job, especially on like the Soldier 76 when a lot of people weren't playing him. He was making really good effectiveness out of the soldiers. So I always like watching some Soldier 76.
Yeah, and Tailspin. A lot of people know Tailspin. He's on the
Tailspin,
team.
really good, really good. He does pretty much a little bit of everything. Definitely was rocking that fair.
So should we explain this format a little bit for people who aren't familiar? So pretty much, we had a voting that took place a few weeks ago, and people got to vote for their favorite individual players. And then so what we're able to see is it's kind of like a fun thing that's going to happen at BlizzCon. There's not a money prize pool or anything. It's just for like bragging rights, and they get a free flight to California, nice little vacation. But yes, there's a bunch of regions. I don't know how many there are, but there's like 20, 30 plus regions, quite a bit of regions.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of regions. Like I said, we're not talking about most of them, just a few of them. But yeah, so I mean, U.S., Canada, Sweden, Germany, I mean, tons of them. And everybody got a chance to vote, and you had to vote specifically for your region. Obviously, if you're in Canada, you had to vote Canada. If you're in U.S., you had to vote U.S. And then those players, like I said, they got chosen to be on the teams, and then Blizzard actually got to pick the rosters, with the exception, of course, like we said, the captains got to pick 2 of their roster members.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting because we'll see players that we're familiar with, like Seagull and Tailspin, but we're not used to seeing them on the same team, and that's the very interesting part about it. So, some of them will be a lot more experienced, like Shore4 and IDQD, but they're not going to, they're going to be playing with new people, or people they're not familiar with.
Right, so it's going to be super interesting just to see how things kind of mesh across the board with teams. I mean, some of the team members are very familiar with each other, and of course, like we said, they're popular streamers and popular pro players, and so I'm sure they're familiar to a certain point. But working together on a team and a cohesive unit is very different when you're not used to playing with a certain person.
Yeah, so IDDQD got the captain role in Sweden. He picked up his buddies, Coco and Tavik, which, that's a pretty strong combination. A lot of people have them favored to win it all.
I definitely am repping USA all the way, but the Sweden team looks pretty strong. IDDQD, Coco, and Tavik, along with a few other people, they're a super strong team looking like.
Well, if Genji's in a good spot come BlizzCon, maybe Seagull could win it for USA, but, hopefully a Tracer doesn't get a buff and he's forced to play some other role in some other classes.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I know everybody likes to see him play his Genji for sure, but, I always like to see Genji played, but it obviously is going to depend on a lot of different things, so we'll see how things work out.
Yeah, so U.S. has a good team. Sweden, they're good. Canada, they got Shore4. A lot of people, think he's, definitely maybe number 1 and one of the best players.
He's definitely one of the best players in the game for sure right now. Shore4, always interesting to watch. He plays a lot of really good play, especially on Tracer and such. But Wiz and Pokes on that team as well. Very good, familiar people if you're familiar with them. Team Germany, I mean, they got some really good players too. Internet Hulk, a lot of people are very familiar with him, and RTR and Skipjack, really good as well. So they're looking pretty good too. They definitely have a chance for sure.
Yeah, and there's, like I said, we're not going to be able to cover all the regions, but just name dropping a lot of people familiar with these guys. They could root them on at the BlizzCon, which is the first weekend or so of November. That's not too far away.
Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely keep an eye on it. Like I said, they will be starting up pretty soon here in September. They're going to be doing some online elimination matches as well. So we'll keep an eye on that, and we'll be reporting on that for sure.
All right, so let's get into strategy. We mentioned before we're talking everything about McCree. Going to cover McCree. He's that cowboy from New Mexico. Everyone knows him.
That 6-shooting toter, that guy. Okay, so jumping right into McCree. Obviously, he is an offensive character. He is 200 health, which is pretty standard across the board for the offensive characters. And, of course, he is toting that 6-shooter, that Peacekeeper, with about 6 ammo. Right,
so, I mean, there's a reason why McCree is in a lot of games. I mean, he's so strong. He is obviously a hit scan character. You just see tons of him. He's so good. He's so effective.
He's pretty straightforward, but he's just a damage dealer. He is the most reliable damage dealer in the game. He does amazing damage at all kind of ranges. Obviously not, sniper range, but pretty well from short to medium to even some longer range. and he's just super effective across the board. If you're a good shooter, if your aim is on ball, then you're going to do pretty well with McCree.
Yeah, so what makes him so good is his primary fire, right? So it does 70 damage. There is some fall off depending on the distance, right? So they're very far away, you'll start getting some fall off. And they made some changes recently about, with that fall off range, but it's still pretty good, pretty solid. It takes him 1.5 seconds to reload, and he's able to shoot, one every half a second or so. And it's also important to note, your reticle does move slightly, something that, people that are new to the game may not realize, but there is a little bit of, kickback on the gun.
Recoil, yeah.
Yeah, recoil.
So yeah, he's definitely one of those people that you kind of got to get used to his aiming, because he's all about the aim. If you can't aim, you're not going to go very far with McCree. So definitely take some time to practice with him, give him a little bit of time to get yourself acclimated to him, but very strong character across the board.
And he is a character that does have a secondary,
alternate
default
fire.
Yeah, alternate fire. There's a right click on the PC, and it's
fan fire. I mean, it's the ability that everybody loves to just spam left and right. Yeah. So it's
called fan the hammer.
Fan the hammer. Yes.
Show notes says fan fire.
Yes, it is his alternate fire. Fan the hammer. He just kind of fans his hammer and shoots. It's going to be about 6 per about 80, almost a full second. It does about a maximum of 270 damage. Of course, that's depending on his range, and there is quite a bit of fall off on that.
Yeah, so the fan to fire used to be really, really, really good. They got nerfed to the ground, and it was really, really useless. But now it's in a good spot because there's circumstances like maybe a Genji or a Tracer is rolling up on you, and you get flashbang and right click, pretty much guaranteed dead. So it is useful now, and it's really good for taking down shields. The damage per second, just like on a Winston shield or Reinhardt shield. Very good DPS.
Right. So we're back in that position where, there was a time when it was just completely useless and you never used it because the damage was never greater than the primary fire. But it definitely can do more damage, but it's got to be close range. There is quite a bit of fall off. You're not going to want to just spam that from a distance. You can only be pretty much using that when you're just trying to pump out a lot of damage into one person.
Yeah, and for someone who's new to the game, when you fan a hammer, all the remaining bullets in your gun get fired. So if you have a full clip, it'll be 6, and vice versa. And if you have a full clip at close range, you're looking at 270 damage. And yeah, so a lot of times you'll see the obvious stun, right click combination. A lot of the lower health characters like your Tracers and Genjis and stuff will be dead within that stun. And it cannot headshot, so this is an ability where you're not aiming for the head. You have some pretty crazy spread patterns there, but you're always aiming at the chest with that one.
Yeah, you want to go for the biggest target for sure. With the spread, you don't want to be aiming at a smaller target. So, yeah, and it's definitely important to note that it's only the remaining ammo that's in your clip, so you probably want to make sure that you're full clip when you use this ability. It's kind of wasteful just to use it unless you're going to get the kill with only a few bullets left in the chamber.
But you can guarantee that full clip by using the combat roll, which is shift default.
Right. So the next ability, combat roll, that guarantees that you're going to get that reload and get a full 6 clip in there. So it's basically got an 8-second cooldown, and he's just going to roll in the direction you're moving, which is important to note because you can move backwards or side to side and get that roll off, kind of avoid certain things as well, and you can use that as a little bit of a movement to get around.
Right, and it has an 8-second cooldown, and a lot of people I hear ask, should I be using combat roll for like a mobility, whether it be offensively or defensively, or should I be using it for reload? And the answer is obviously both. You gotta look at the position you're in. You have to use your head, like, okay, what's gonna be most beneficial at this moment? And it might be challenging, but sometimes the roll is gonna be good, and sometimes that reload's going to be good.
Right. So it really depends on the situation. Obviously, if you're getting back into the situation and you want to get back quicker, combat roll can definitely help you get there. But obviously, my rule of thumb is if I'm close enough to where, I don't really need to roll, it's bad to combat roll if you're not going to get the reload. So, I mean, if you're just starting out, you can combat roll. The 8-second cooldown will be back up when you need it, but definitely don't use it when you're going to encounter enemies right around the corner and you might need that roll.
Yeah, I use it, quite a bit for mobility. A lot of times I'm trying to dodge the Roadhog hooks. That's pretty deadly, the Roadhog hooks.
Those hooks, man, they get you. Yeah,
so you could kind of roll. Obviously, you're going to probably have to premeditate that hook a little bit, but a lot of times just as you're avoiding ults altogether, like a Zarya ult, you have a good amount of time to react to that, and a roll might just be enough to get you out of the range, stuff like that. But obviously, if you right click, you can roll and right click pretty quickly right after if you need, for some reason, over 500 damage in just a couple of seconds.
Yeah, so yeah, there's definitely multiple ways that you can use it, and obviously, reload or combat roll. We're going to talk a lot about that in his character discussion as well, but definitely something to think about. His next ability on the list is the flashbang. It is default E on the keyboard, and this is the ability that you're going to see a lot of people using in combination with the fan the hammer.
So a lot of people say stuns don't belong in FPSs. How do you have a stun in FPS? It's a flashbang, but it does stun, but I think it's fine. I don't think it's broken. It has a 10-second cooldown. It does do a little bit of damage, 25 damage. And a stun is, they changed its duration so many times throughout the period of the game, but it's currently at 0.7 seconds.
Right, so it's not a huge stun, but it makes all the difference in this game. I mean, you have plenty of ults, which we can talk about, that are going to, be affected by the flashbang. It's going to stop them completely. And it's going to be very useful for that. But most of the time, like I said, you're going to see it used in combination with the fan the hammer to get that kill on the really the cancers of Overwatch, which are going to be your tracers and your Genjis and such.
Right, and obviously the damage on the flashbang cannot headshot. It's not something you're aiming for the head. Right. And there is some recovery time, so you can't just stun and immediately start fanning or just start primary firing. But the 0.7 second stun, the recovery time, you're looking at half of that, so you have plenty of time to stun someone and get a headshot. So that 25 plus 140 damage, that's quite a bit of damage. And I mean that recovery time as well gives you time to aim if you're just going to left click. So if you know that you can get the kill off with just a left click, a lot of times you can get away with that, and that time for that recovery, you can still move and aim. So it's definitely something to keep in mind. You don't have to right click every single time if you're not going to get the kill, Yeah, a lot of times, if you're stunning someone who's mid-air, or just outside, if they're far enough, I mean, I don't know. Like with tracers, I always stun and just headshot into tracers. It's 100% guaranteed dead. And then when they're standing still right in front of you, obviously, flashbang has a pretty short range. So if you got that stun off, like on a tracer, for example,
you're going to be pretty close enough to just headshot the person. Yeah, definitely.
Sometimes there's different scenarios. Like I said, someone's mid-air, sometimes there's, different circumstances, but...
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the flashbang, multifaceted, you can use it a bunch of different ways. One of the big things mentioned, of course, we will mention is definitely want to be careful around the Genjis with that, because you can get it reflected back at you, and that is not fun at all.
Yeah, you got to watch out for that. But a lot of it's just baiting it out with the left click, and then you're good to go. Because he can't really hurt you when he's reflecting. Right. But immediately, I mean, he can cancel any time and just shift to you and do ninja stuff.
Right. So yeah, I mean, you definitely want to keep in mind, when you're going up against Genji, that you're really waiting for that reflect to come up before you use that flashbang.
Right. So let's talk about his ultimate, Deadeye. We talked a little bit about it. It did get some recent changes to where when you pop your Q, it doesn't just immediately go to 50% and then consumes 50% if you use it. It now just every quarter of a second it just ticks away slowly, so you don't have the huge amount of time and cleared the whole space.
Yeah, it's going to pretty much be as soon as you pop it, you're not canceling it. I mean, there's just no reason anymore, I think, to cancel it. You're pretty much using it all the time. So it does have a charge time about 1 second per 200 health. So it's something to keep in mind. Obviously, bigger targets like tanks and such, you're going to have to wait out a little bit longer for those.
Yeah, so a lot of people don't realize how this works. So the obviously, when you pop Deadeye, what you're going to have is you're going to have reticles appear of all of your enemies that are in your line of sight. So obviously, you have to be looking in their direction and towards them, and you'll see a circle like a load bar. And once it's completed, it's going to have a skull, looks like the Deadeye icon, and that tells you that they're going to be killed. But that the duration required is dependent on health. So every second that passes consumes 200 health. So obviously, a tank or someone who has a lot of health is going to take a lot longer. If you have a Lucio drop the beat, it's going to take a very long time. But obviously, once you're in your line of sight, you just left click to get the kill, or you right click to cancel. Because if they all ran for the hills, you might as sometimes it is going to be better just to cancel it because you'll retain some of that charge percentage.
Yeah, I mean, there can be definitely situations in which you might cancel it. But yeah, I mean, hopefully you're trying to use the ability and you got a pretty good location. You got a beat on at least a couple of people. You're not just wasting it on one person unless the person really needs to die for some reason, which you could probably do a lot better without using Deadeye. But if you're going to be using Deadeye, obviously you want to make sure you have multiple people in your area, and hopefully that you don't have a big defensive going out where that it's going to be completely wasted. So yeah, it's about 1 second per every 200 health. Of course, like we said, the tanks is going to take longer. And the maximum duration that you can hold it out there for is about 10 seconds before it will just go canceled. And again, we talked about the drain time is about a quarter of a second. And it's important to note Deadeye does not headshot.
It doesn't need the headshot because it'll kill them if it's charged, if you waited. I mean, it'll still do damage if you don't get the 100% charge on them. But typically, you're looking for the kill. Obviously, you want to be very aware of things like a Genji Reflect, right? You want to be aware of Zarya shields and just shields in general. If it's a Winston, things can prevent you from killing them even though they're in your line of sight.
Right. So yeah, there are definitely things to keep an eye out for. That Genji Reflect is definitely brutal because if I am correct, he can headshot the Deadeye back at you. So although you're not able to headshot with it, his Reflect can still headshot.
Yeah, well, I tested this way back in beta, so it's possible it could have changed, but I don't believe it's changed. The way it works is Genji doesn't have to headshot you back. The way it works is the bullet that's coming out of McCree's weapon is going to kill if it's 100%, right? So let's say Genji has 1 health. It's almost like an instant lock, right? And McCree shoots. It only needs to do 1 damage to kill. But because it's going to be a kill on him, if he reflects that, even if it's not a headshot, it still kills McCree. It doesn't matter if he has 1 health or 2 health. Right. That could have changed because I tested that a very long time ago. But the way, like, the projectile is kind of like the person's dead, Yeah,
it just basically holds on to the information that it's going to kill whoever it hits. So definitely got to be careful with that. Doesn't matter what kind of health they have. Even if you're hitting somebody with, like, really low health, like you said, with only 1 health, if it gets reflected back at you, you're going to die. So...
yeah, so
definitely watch out for those reflects.
Yeah, I might need to do some more science, keep that up to date. But I did test that out, and that's the way it worked in beta.
Yeah, so definitely be careful. I mean, when you're using your Deadeye, I see a lot of people who, especially when they're new to it, they pop the Deadeye and they left click right away. First of all, you're not going to get the kill on anybody if you do that even. And on top of that, it makes it really easy for to reflect that. So you definitely want to bait the reflect out. And if the reflect comes out, then you're either going to wait it out because it doesn't last quite as long as the 10 seconds, or you're going to definitely cancel it. You don't want to get hit with that.
Yeah, and it goes without saying that you are vulnerable when you pop your Deadeye because you're standing still and a tumbleweed flies by. Kind of helps with your position giveaway.
Yeah.
So, sometimes you want to kind of be like behind the bush or something. I've got some pretty decent Deadeyes. You want to flank, you want to be hidden. Obviously, standing behind Reinhardt shields works.
That or having the height advantage, having the verticality. If you're up above and they don't quite see you right away, you can get a sneaky one off. But obviously, keep in mind, eventually people will locate you as soon as the sound for Deadeye goes off. Your position is going to be given away. So.
Yeah, we've all seen the Reddit post where the enemy Junkrat blows McCree up in the sky, and he's able to just kill everyone because he got the best, line of sight advantage.
Yeah, so definitely watch out for that.
All right, so let's talk about putting McCree's abilities all together as a kid and playing him to his strengths, understanding what his weaknesses are and pretty much just playing to your strengths and getting the most amount of value out of your character. So let's talk about a weakness right off the bat, and he does have 1 roll mobility, but it's not very far, and he is, he definitely doesn't have the blinking of the Tracer, the maneuverability of a Genji,
or the double jump. He's definitely vertically challenged, as well as his movement ability is not nearly as great as some of the other offensive characters. So definitely keep in mind that you are grounded as McCree for the most part, and you don't have a huge mobility. So if you're going up against somebody like Tracer or Genji, you kind of have to play your cards right if you want to win that.
Yeah, but being able to recognize, what you're weak against, right? So like we're talking about Mei, how weak she is. I mean, if you Blizzard ulti on a McCree, there's no way he's getting out of that,
Yeah, so he's very weak against certain ults like that, especially, like we said, Mei is a really good counter to him. If you don't have your flashbang and maybe your aim is not as good as it could be, Mei's can make it very difficult for you, because even just with their left click, once they get you, immobile and you're not moving anywhere, you're a pretty easy target.
Yeah, but McCree should be able to kill Mei one-on-one.
Oh, yeah, I mean, if you have...
unless she has her ulti, but...
Yeah, you should definitely be able to take on a Mei, but you definitely got to keep in mind that she's going to want to freeze you. So definitely try and play that out of her range.
Yeah, just things like Roadhog hooks. You're not going anywhere fast, so you're pretty easy pickings.
Yeah, so again, if you don't have that roll especially, you are very vulnerable to a hook and such.
Half the time you're still getting hooked whether you have a roll or not. So
yeah, it's definitely one of the ones you got to watch out for. Obviously,
you have to premeditate.
You're not gonna get that kill super quick on that Roadhog. Even with the flashbang alt combo, you're gonna have to be careful of those hooks.
Yeah, like
sure.
Zarya ult, like even like a Diva ult, if it's placed properly. I mean, things where it requires you to really run for the hills, you're not gonna be going anywhere fast. So understanding that, you have crazy deadly potential. McCree is one of those characters where if I'm up against a McCree, I have to be 100% aware exactly where he's at and where he's looking, because if I'm a Zenyatta over here on my team, I can't just go in line of sight of a halfway decent McCree, because my head will be flying.
Yeah, you definitely gotta, like I said, it's situational awareness really comes into play with McCree, and playing against McCree, you really want to be aware of your situation and your surroundings. So learning the maps inside and out is really going to help you. Obviously, knowing where the health packs is really good as McCree. You don't have any kind of a heal, so if you're not getting reliable heals from your healer, then obviously knowing where the health packs are will be very beneficial as well.
Yeah, but typically, McCree's just so good right now. He's just too good. I mean, maybe not too good, but you just pretty much aim for the head and you left click and everybody dies. That's pretty much how you play McCree. You don't play him unless you can aim properly, and yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, he's very straightforward in a lot of ways, like we mentioned. I mean, he doesn't have a lot of crazy mobility going on, or, his ultimate is pretty straightforward as well. It's still, something that you kind of have to charge up, and it's very, very vulnerable. So I know, like myself, I find it hard to kind of get a lot of done with the Deadeye. So you have to be very careful with how you're using that and really learn how to use his ultimate very well. But, obviously starting out, the flashbang, alternate fire, fan the hammer is really going to be a useful thing to pick up right away, and it's going to help you with a lot of the flankers, because I find a lot of people who, aren't good with McCree have a lot of problem with that as well.
Yeah, so we could talk a little bit more about flashbang and using it to get some pretty good value. Obviously, Reinhardt's, they don't like McCree's very much, right? Because their charge, you can just stun their charge, and you can save your teammate's life. Or if he's trying to charge you, you just stun him outright. Obviously, if you're close to him, you can throw your flashbang over the shield, and he becomes very susceptible. You probably would be right-clicking at that point, but your whole team could follow up with damage and do some crazy damage.
Yeah, and thing to mention is that Reinhardt's always usually on the front line. He is the first line of defense for most teams, and so if you're taking that person out, that hero out pretty quickly, especially with the flashbang combo and your team following up, you can kind of delete him really quickly and make pretty easy work of him. So definitely you can catch him off guard. If you find a situation where he's very vulnerable, if he's charging at a friendly, you can definitely save your friend's life. If he's gonna drop the shield at any point, or even if he's trying to retreat, you'll notice again, Reinhardts don't move very quickly either unless they're charging. So sometimes you'll see them out with their shield out and they're just hopping backwards. I always love that when they're hopping around, and it makes it really easy to just flashbang over the top and take him out before he can retreat.
Yeah, and we talked about flashbang being a stun, so there's tons of ultimates and just other abilities that could be interrupted by a stun, like a Pharah ult or another McCree ult. I mean, there's tons of abilities that get interrupted.
Yeah, there's so many different situations.
What about a Reaper? You always see Reapers because they always want to get in your face, and you just stun them, and headshot them.
That's one you definitely want to keep an eye out for, because Reapers obviously have really good close-up damage, and they're one of the people that can kind of come out and surprise you with that shadow step. So keep in mind, if you have that flashbang, you're definitely going to want to use that.
Is it pretty much anything channeled, like a Roadhog ultimate or something? You can stun them. You can't stun a Zenyatta ult, though. That's kind of channeled.
Yeah, you're not going to stun that, no.
But what you can do is Deadeye. You're not going to kill Zenyatta, but you'll kill everybody inside of it because it's a one-shot kill.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You can definitely do something like that because, when Zenyatta is ulting, everybody is huddling around Zenyatta, so it makes it really easy to get multiple people in one, and they're probably not going to be going and, aggressing on you to take you down because they're trying to stay and get healed. So
yeah, when they think they're safe, too, because they're in the Zenyatta circle, and then you can still get one-shot killed in Zenyatta. It's going to heal you like 400 a second or something ridiculous. But if you get one shot killed,
you're still dead. Yeah.
Even like a widow,
and then you really want the mercy. Then you're like, oh, why do we got a Zenyatta? I need a mercy right now. I'm dead. But
yeah, then if they res, you're also very good against the mercy res, because when they made some changes to the animation duration, but when they're being res, you can actually get a little bit of your ult charge before their characters are playable. So if you see a res and a bunch of people pop up in front of you, you could charge.
Really good time to ult.
Yeah,
for
charge
sure.
your Deadeye while they're susceptible, just standing there in the res, and then pull the trigger when they come.
Yeah, definitely really good place to use that Deadeye. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, he's very straightforward. It's really just a matter of getting on him, spending some time practicing, and getting that aim down, and just learning how he moves and learning his abilities. But it's pretty straightforward. Yeah, I don't know, anything else we might have missed?
So the thing about McCree is he's so effective, but he's very straightforward. Like I said, you just aim for the person's head and you kill him. Just another question a lot of people ask about McCree is, like, what's a good accuracy? That question comes up all the time. And obviously that depends a lot. If you're up against a Tracer and or Genji, then your accuracy is going to fall quite a bit. But I mean, generally, shoot for 50%. If you're, somewhere hovering around 50% McCree, you're doing pretty good. Like I said, obviously, if you have like a Genji Tracer enemies, it is going to go down. But shoot for the 50%, and yeah, I mean, he's super straightforward. You just aim for the head, pull the trigger.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, like I said, that I think we might mention is just the fact that, you really want to focus on using your left click and getting as good as you possibly can with that, because it's really your bread and butter. That's what you're using 90% of the time. That's where you're getting all your kills from. And that's the hardest thing to do with McCree, is to really be accurate. So, try and shoot more for accuracy rather than just spraying bullets out there. You're not going to get any muscle memory or get better with him just spraying bullets. I see people out there just right clicking and just ult, fan the hammer, and it doesn't help you. You're not going to get the kill like that probably, and you're just making it worse for yourself.
Yeah, you don't fan the hammer past like a couple arm lengths in front of you, because the accuracy is horrendous, and you can just left click them in the face and they die.
And again, I mean, they did some changing to the effectiveness range of left click, but it is still a pretty good range you could take people down from. So. And that's going to do it for episode 20. Thank you guys for listening. We'll see you next week. Be sure and message us and let us know who you want us to cover for our character summary next week. We only got like 5 left, so be sure and message us.
Yes, and this show is brought to you by 2 Moon Studios. Thank you again to all the people who have reached out to us, whether it's on our email at heroeswelcomepodcast@gmail.com, or on Twitter. We're at 2 Moon Studios, and we'll have that in the description or linked however you're getting this podcast. And again, thank you so much, and until next time.
Till next time.